Hello again, my name is David Watts from Lenovo Press, and I have with me today Paul Scaini. He is the Worldwide Segment Manager for Tower Systems. How are you doing, Paul?
How you doing?
So today we're going to be talking about the ThinkSystem ST550. This is our new two-socket tower server, and we're going to take you through the components. So Paul, tell us a bit about this server and who's the target audience?
So typically tower servers are designed for small businesses, but they're also designed for remote offices and branch offices of enterprises. So that being said, it still needs to have all the reliability and the manageability and the security type features you'd expect at an enterprise server, but there's a few extra things you need to add on to the server because they're not typically designed for data center use. A lot of them are in places like in a back room or in a broom closet or under a desk or places where you typically are not used to seeing servers in a rack configuration.
Okay.
So when you design a tower server, it's important to take those things into consideration.
Okay. So security is important. What sort of features does this server have for security?
So from a security perspective, because they're not in a locked, secure facility, security is very important. So we'll start with this kind of security door that we have on the front, and the security door itself actually covers absolutely everything. I guess we can open that up, including your power buttons, your USBs, and your drives. And that what it does is it physically keeps them secure from being tampered with.
The door is optional, so if you don't actually want the door, or if it's in the way, you can get the system without that, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Yep. Now the security at the front is important, but also access to the inside.
Correct. So as you can see on the side, we actually have a lock that locks the side panel onto the server itself, and it also acts as a lock for the door. So if you have it all kind of secured up, you could lock it up completely, and you know that your front is secure and that your inside of the chassis is secure as well.
All right.
And on top of that, we actually have an added feature we call a chassis intrusion switch. So what it is it's a little switch that gets activated when the side panel comes off of the server, and it gives an alert to the xClarity management controller. And what that does is lets the administrator know that someone's been in there and tampering with the box. Right.
Yep. Okay. All right. So you open the door. Let's. Should we go through the components in the front of the system?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So you can see here this system here has 4 3.5-inch drive bays at the bottom. This configuration with 3.5-inch drives can go up to 8 3.5-inch, either hot swap or simple swap configurations. The server also supports instead 8 or 16 2.5-inch hot swap drives, and also this server has 2 5.25-inch media bays. Now, Paul, those can be used for other purposes, right?
Correct. So they're there traditionally for people that are using optical drives and tape drives. But these days, they're not super popular. So what we decided to do is we didn't want to waste that space. Because another attribute of having these in remote office spaces is the actual physical size. These need to be able to fit under desks and in back rooms. So we didn't want to make the server bigger, but we wanted to kind of use the space as best as we could. So there is an option to actually fit 4 more 2.5-inch drives in the space where the optical drives are. And that'll give you a total of 20 2.5-inch drives in a 2.5-inch drive configuration.
Or you can have a hybrid configuration, right?
Correct.
Where you can have 8 3.5-inch and 4 2.5-inch hot swap drives.
Exactly. Yeah. So a lot of customers, they like the bigger drives for a lot of storage, but they still want to use SSDs for hot data. So that gives you a great hybrid configuration where you can fit 4 SSDs up on the top and then have 8 10 terabyte drives in there to get the maximum type of storage use.
So maximum capacity with the 3.5s, and then high performance SSDs, for example.
Exactly. It's the best of both worlds.
In the top there. Yep. Okay. Now along the top there are the usual controls. We have a power button and LED display, a series of LEDs for systems, for error, for Ethernet activity, hard drive activity. Right. This button here is an ID button, so if you you can remotely engage that LED, or you can press the button to turn it on. Correct. That will light it up at the front, and there is a matching LED at the back as well.
And that's more useful for rack configurations, and then that's a good point to mention that this also comes in a rackable configuration as well.
That's right. Yes, you can convert this to a 4U rack. Yeah, good point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Actually, this USB port is kind of interesting. So this USB port supports the xClarity management through your mobile phone or tablet. So what you could do is you could basically take your mobile phone or tablet along with the xClarity app, which I believe is called...
Yes, so it's xClarity Administrator is the mobile app.
So you plug it in via USB and you tether it to that particular USB port, and then you have full access to the management on site as opposed to doing it remote.
Yeah, so it's additional enterprise level management capability for this system. Yeah. So there's a USB 2 and a USB 3 port on this system. Yep. So that's the front. Let's spin it around to the back, shall we? So now you mentioned some of the security features.
Yes.
You've also got a couple of extra security things back here too, right? The Kensington slot.
Yeah. So the Kensington slot, what it
this
enables
little-
you to do is it
little
enables
hole
you
right
to
here.
actually physically bolt down the server to a table leg or a desk or any sort of wall type of lock to prevent someone from actually physically picking up the server and running away with it. And also you'll see we have a set of keys back here. Those are the same keys that'll help you kind of lock the bezel and the side panel on here. Do remember though, if you do lock the keys, try not to leave those there behind there. It's not the most secure place to put them. You probably want to put them somewhere a little more secure than the back.
Like on your car keys, maybe? I don't know.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so other things. At the top here, we have this system here has two 550-watt hot swap power supplies. There are other hot swap capacities available as well. And the server also supports a single fixed power supply, 450 watt,
yeah.
for
Not
lower
all customers
configuration.
see the benefit in having hot swap power supply. So there is a low cost version for entry configurations that doesn't have the hot.
So
the hot
flexible
swap and redundant.
choices there, depending on the components that you install in the system, would determine what power you actually need. And the added functionality of the redundant power supplies and the hot swap ones means your system can suffer a single power supply failure and it will still remain operational. Correct. So it's quite a good enterprise level feature there in the system. Going further down, we've got 4 USB ports. Again, the blue ones are the USB 3s and the black ones are the USB 2. Right next to the USB 3s, there is an Ethernet port, single Ethernet port. That's the dedicated systems management port. So if you're doing remote management, you could connect that port directly to your management environment.
Correct. To
manage the system remotely.
Yes.
Further down, 2 gigabit Ethernet ports are standard. Of course, you can add more networking capability through the PCIe slots. And below that is a VGA port. There are 2 little holes just there. One, the NMI, that's to do a hardware reset of the system if you absolutely need to. And below that is the second of the ID LEDs. That's, remember at the front we talked about the ID button. That will light up blue if you press that button or enable it remotely.
Correct.
Again, to identify the system, usually in a rack environment. And then below that are the slots. This server, as we'll show you once we open the machine up, has 6 PCIe slots. The 7th hole there at the very top is actually for a optional serial port.
Correct.
So there's a serial port connection on the system board. If you want a serial port, it won't take up any of those slots, put it that way. And all of those slots are PCIe 3.0, various lane widths depending on the slot.
Correct.
Okay, so that's the back of the server. So shall we, let's flip it on its side.
Sounds good.
And open up and have a look inside, shall we? All right, so let's take the cover off. So you can see here that on the inside of the cover there is a service label, useful information on how to install components and memory, installation order, things like that. Quite useful information to have ready access.
Sure, and I guess the next thing you see is we have some placeholders here for the super caps, and those are needed for the performance rate cards that have the caching on them. And those sit actually right on top of this air baffle here.
So let's remove that.
Let's take that off there. So the air baffle is really important, especially with these really, really big heat sinks.
Those are really quite large, aren't they?
See, they are big heat sinks.
Let me remove this as well.
So the combination of kind of the air baffle and the heat sinks and these really large fans that we have here are super important because tower servers, what makes them different is a lot of them are in office environments, which means they're right by people's desks where they're working and stuff. So our goal was to kind of make them whisper quiet or make them operate at a temperature that was lower than what we call office ambient temperature, which means you don't hear them in a typical office environment.
Right.
In order to achieve that, basically you have really big fans, and those really big fans go over really big heat sinks, and you use a baffle to kind of control the air to make sure the air goes over the hottest part of the server, and that's how we achieve the great acoustics we have on this particular tower.
So the air comes through these large fans at the front, and there's the 4th redundant fan at the back.
Correct.
Through the most important components, the processors and the memory.
Correct. Which also is the hottest part of the gets to be the hottest part of the server.
Yeah. Okay. All right, we can just remove that as well. So, so you can see it's very easy to gain access to the internal components. We just did there. So Paul, let's go through the major parts.
Sure.
So the processors, obviously the biggest thing there. These are the new Intel Xeon scalable family processors.
Correct.
Yeah.
So what Intel's done is they've eliminated the difference between EP and EX. You get a full range of scalable platforms from what you would traditionally have as an entry 2-socket CPU all the way to a high-end, they're calling platinum CPUs. And this tower in particular does support platinum CPUs, one platinum SKU. It's a low power platinum SKU. Up to about 125 watts is the maximum TDP for CPUs on this box.
And now the server has 12 memory DIMM slots.
Correct.
So it's 6 for each processor.
Yep.
You can get this as a single or a dual processor configuration.
Yes.
So if you're using, for example, the 32 gig DIMMs, then up to 384 gig of memory, or if you use the larger 64 gig LR DIMMs, you can go up to 768 gigabytes of RAM.
Quick math out there.
So that's the CPU and memory configuration. Now, as we mentioned before, there are 6 PCIe slots. The adapter that's installed here is a RAID controller. This M.2 adapter here, adapter slot, is our new offering for integrated virtualization and for boot drive solution.
Correct.
You want to talk about that?
I mean, so the reason we decided to go with M.2 is a lot of other uses of internal boot use things like USB sticks or SD cards, and they're not really robust, and they don't have power loss protection, which doesn't make them truly kind of enterprise. With the M.2s, we can actually have 2 of them and have them rated, or they actually have the power loss protection. So if the power does go down while you're writing something to the boot drive, it's able to finish and complete the write before the system goes down. So that's that extra layer of robustness you expect in an enterprise quality product.
And the M.2 cards can be, I think the 2 sizes are 32 gig or 128 gig.
Correct.
So you can use those as boot drives, a RAID 1 boot drive configuration. You can use them for virtualization engines, deployment tools, all sorts of things are accessible.
Exactly.
This is a PCI device available as a dual RAID PCIe or a single drive SATA connection.
Exactly. And what that does is, by using those, it does free up your drives at the front to be used for additional storage.
For your data.
So you don't have to waste a full 2.5-inch drive just for boot.
So let's talk about the fans here. We have 3 easy swap fans at the front of the server, just behind the drive bays. We call them easy swap because you can remove them without any tools. And we have a 4th one. With the 4, the fans are N+1 redundant for most configurations. So that's another handy enterprise level offering. Now, I mentioned the RAID card earlier on. This card is connected to the drives at the front of the system. Now, if you want, you can also use an NVMe switch adapter, right, Paul?
Correct. And what that does is it actually allows you to plug into what we call AnyBay drives. So you get up to 4 AnyBay drives in the 2.5-inch configuration. And we call them AnyBay because you could actually put SATA, SAS, or NVMe drives. And in order to do that, you do need the adapter.
And the advantage of the NVMe drives is that they are extremely low latency. Not only are they just SSDs, high performance, but the NVMe connection, which is a direct PCI connection, very low latency, excellent for high performance I/O applications.
Exactly.
Yep. So, Paul, I think that's about it, right?
Sure.
So there you have it. This is the ThinkSystem ST550, our new 2-socket tower system. Paul, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
And hope you found the video useful, and we will see you later.